This is the Basics in Java course. It will be a 5-day online course. It's a joint project between STEMEncounters and the Elliptic Collective. So what I'm planning on generally doing is just going through the basics of Java, like really simple syntax, loops, variables, stuff like that. And we'll end off on the last day with classes and basically how to use them, because that is the main aspect of Java and object-oriented programming. That's why it's so useful. And there will be assignments for every single lecture or video, whatever you want to call it. It'll be pretty short. It's just more like you getting used to using the Java syntax. And I mean, I really do recommend you go to sites or textbooks or whatever and get exercises from those, because learning Java or any other programming language is really about doing a lot of exercises and practicing so you're really familiar with what you're doing. So first off, I just want to start with why learn Java, because there's so many programming languages out there and you're just wondering, okay, why is Java so useful? So first of all, Java's most commonly used programming language worldwide. So that's definitely a huge factor that comes into play when you're choosing a language you want to learn, because if you do suppose you want to get a job or you want to get an internship, I mean, it's just a lot more useful if you know a language that the people you're working with also know. And a design aspect is object-oriented programming, which is super useful because you can easily fix it or change small things without having to disrupt the entire system. You notice why it's so nice to use once you start actually making the programs. But for now, I'll just tell you that. And this language is pretty old. It's like 20 some years old, I think. So it has a lot of classes and libraries and a great documentation support online. So it's really easy to use. You don't have to kind of scour the internet for documentation or any libraries you want to use. And the biggest thing I think is platform independent, because when you're compiling Java or running Java programs, the way it works is you first of all compile into bytecode, and then the JVM, like the Java Virtual Machine, executes that compiled bytecode into, the program, like what the program would do. The thing about the Java Virtual Machine is, like, for each platform, like Windows, Mac, Linux, it's very dependent on that platform, so it's like unique to that platform. So then the Java source code can be compiled anywhere because JVM is so quote unquote universal. So this is just what I basically just said. You start with the Java code and you have the compiler that compiles in the bytecode, and the JVM specific to your operating system or your platform will execute the code, and it will show what the program was supposed to do. So today I just wanted to do some really basic stuff like setting up Java and IDE, because of course you need those to actually do the programs, and just write that hello world program you see everywhere. I mean, it's pretty simple and useful because you get a hang of what programs should look like. I won't really go into explaining why the program will look like the way it does, because as you learn more Java, you'll get a hang of it, and it will be easier if you sort of just learn it on the way, because right now you won't really know what any of the keywords mean, so there really isn't a point. And the assignment, of course, is just to set up Java and the IDE yourself, and I'll give you a short program to do, and that will be our plan for today. The first thing you need to do is go install the JDK, just like the kit, basically actually having the language on your computer. I think on certain computers they already have Java installed, but I'll just show you how to download it because it doesn't hurt to do it just in case. So just search up something like Java Oracle download, and you get something like this. And I mean, just download it. You have to go through a list of steps. So it depends on obviously what operating system you are on. So I'm on a Mac. So I'll just do the installer. I'll just wait because I want to show you guys how you'll be going through this. Okay, so open the package. I'm just trying to just go through all the steps. You can move the trash because this is the installer and not the actual language, the actual kit. Next thing you want to do is download the IDE, which is the Integrated Development Environment. It's basically where you type in all your code. You don't have to use an IDE to execute code. You can just put it into a text editor and use terminal. But I really do find it's a lot easier because it's a really nice organization system, and you'll notice that when you type in the code, they'll like do certain things where they auto-complete the brackets, and you definitely want to use that. I already have it installed on my computer, but Eclipse is almost always a to-go for Java. Some people I know use IntelliJ, so I'll just write them down. See, this is Eclipse, and IntelliJ looks like this. I do know that IntelliJ, there's a free version, like a community version, and the expensive version, like that one you have to actually buy. You really don't need the one you need to buy, at least at this level, unless you are a huge like software developer. So you can just install the community version. Or if you're a student at a university, then you can actually get it for free for like a 1-year license, I believe. So I'll just show you how to do Eclipse. It's pretty self-explanatory. You just download whatever they tell you to download, really, and just go through the steps. And that's how you download Java and Eclipse. And I'll now show you how to actually set up the files and the program inside your IDE. Alright, so now I'm going to get into making a program using input and not just output, because a lot of the times you're interacting with the user and it's really useful to be able to know these input skills. I'll get more into variables and data types and classes and object-oriented programming in the future lectures, but for now I'll just give you some sort of summary of them just so that you know how input works. Because I did find that when I first learned Java, input was definitely one of the first things I learned, and it was the most useful. So first off, I'll just start by making a new project. So I'll just right click the white area here and click new project, and let's see, I'll just call it class 1. Okay, so we won't really worry about modules for right now because they really aren't useful, particular with what we're doing, because we're only using programs in just one class itself. So we already have the module, so we'll just create the class inside it. Again, I'm not going to talk about what these really are since they're not really relevant right now. This could be anything. Alright. So now I have a class called public class 1 example. So I'll first want to talk a tiny bit about classes. I'm not going to get into a lot of detail. It's just so you know what's really going on. So a class is basically a mold telling you what types of objects do you want. So for example, I could create a class called person and it describes different types of people. For example, I could have age, height, and where they were born, but that's all like inherent properties of a person. And if I create something that's called an instance of that class, that means I'm creating an object based off of that class. So if I create a person called Anna, that means that I can add an age to that person, I can add height, and I can add their birthplace. So the reason why you can tell why object-oriented programming is so useful, like this class system, is because I can easily just modify the class, the structure of the class itself, and not have to actually go back to each specific person and edit them. Because I can say, okay, I want to add the day they were born, their birthday, but I don't have to go to every single person and say, okay, I need to add a new birthday to it, but I can just go to the class that I defined and be like, okay, I can add a new variable called int birthday that's always going to tell me the age, and for each of the persons I can iterate through them and set their age to a certain number. So that's why object-oriented programming is so useful. But for now, I'll just go into making the standard method, just really easy basic stuff where I have input. So every single time in a Java program, if you have a class, a method, or interface, whenever I'm defining it, I always need brackets. So brackets is always telling you what is the class. So if I have a public class 1 example, then whatever is in the bracket is what's inside the class. So for example, if I define something outside here, like I say I want to print something, hello, then that's not included in the class. So that means that I need to put it inside the brackets, but actually that's not enough because I do need a method, but that's just the general gist. So for example, if I add my standard method, which is for now only method you'll probably be using, like this, then everything inside here is what's being executed when I click that run button, because I don't have any other methods outside. This is the only thing that my JVM is going to be like, okay, I need to compile this and then run this, like execute this. So if I wanted to print out hello, then I would have to put it in here and then add my semicolon, because I always need that at the end. So that's just printing hello. So now I want to add input. So the standard way to input, there's several different ways to do it, but the easiest way to do it is import something called scanner. So it's called it's called scanner. So what this phrase means is that I'm importing the class scanner from the package util from the standard Java libraries. So as I said before in the beginning, why Java is so useful, it's so mature, so it has a ton of classes and libraries you can use. So for example, util is one of the packages, and scanner is one of the classes. On that note, you can actually just import java.util.star, and that's just going to import everything in util. But over here, I'm only importing scanner because I really don't need the rest of these. So okay, say now I want to get the person's name. So okay, I can write your name, So that's what's going to print out when I execute this program or run this program. So now I'm asking for the person's name. So here's where the class comes in, because scanner is a class. So you want to make an object, a scanner object, so then you can use the methods inside that class. Because the scanner class, when you're defining it, has a ton of methods that can perform certain functions using that scanner. So I want to create scanner s equals new scanner. But over here in the parentheses, this depends entirely on how your class is defined. Because in classes, you can have different ways to create a new object. But for scanner, for now, we want to use system.in, because this is taking in the input when the person who is running the program will be able to type in. For example, this was the preferred, the output that we're supposed to get. So I would type in Sophie, so that would be from system into system.in. But of course, there are different things you can put in here, but we won't really need them, so we're not going to talk about them. So for today, we're just going to do input with strings. So a string is a type, it's a data type, but actually it's really a class called string, and you're basically creating a new instance of that, a new object of that class. So I'll create string n equals whatever. So for now, I'll just say hi. So what that is telling you is that I'm creating a new object string, I'm defining it to be hi. So if I say system.out.println n, then that's going to print hi for me. But you have to note that whenever you're defining your variables, you always want to make sure the names of the variables are different. Because, for example, if these were both named s, then if I refer to s in a later part of my code, then the system wouldn't know which s you're referring to. So that will cause a lot of problems. So that's why you always want to make sure your variable names are very distinct and you won't be able to confuse them. So what we want to do with the string is that we want to set whatever I'm getting from the scanner, whatever is the input here, like my name, and then put it into string. So the way you do this is do s.next line parentheses. So this is taking that object s and then going inside the scanner class and then picking out the method next line, which does exactly what you want it to do. So now I'll just write an output so I know I've received the input, the name, and plus n. So here is a concatenation of strings. So this is saying I'm printing out a name, this part in the quotation, then I'm adding the N here. So for example, if my N was Sophie, then if I print this, then it would give me name Sophie. But if I change this to anything I like, it doesn't matter, then the exact same thing is going to be copied in here. And in fact, you can actually add more stuff at the end, like exclamation point, then this will just turn out to be like that. So let's just run this program to see how it works. Alright, so there did seem to be a tiny problem with it. I had to add a package at the beginning, but we don't have to worry about that right now. So I'm just going to run the program. So now right here, I'm going to write my name. I'm going to click enter. So then it will write n equals Sophie, so then it will print this. Alright, so that's how you use the scanner class. It's really useful, and you can actually do it for integers or any other data type. I just want to do string because it was the simplest, and I really didn't have to introduce data types for this. But for today, I will have an assignment that is basically going to tell you how to install it, or actually just make you install it because I already explained in the videos. And I'll have a few 2 or 3 exercises, but I really do recommend you go out on your own, get exercises online because there's so many of them, and it's really easy to check if you've done something wrong, especially with Eclipse, because for example, if I do make an error, I just want to show you guys. Then you can click this red button, or this red X, and you can see it's never closed, and what that means, see, it even tells you that you have to insert a semicolon at the end. So Eclipse is really useful for that, and there actually is a debugger in Eclipse, but it really isn't necessary for really tiny programs like these. Debuggers are generally for huge, massive projects. Alright, that is it for today. Just next lecture or next video, we're going to be going over variables, how to define them, simple data types such as int, boolean, double, float, and when you use what, and just creation of a method, because those are particularly useful if you want to dissect a really complicated code and not define too many variables that you're going to get confused on. And that's it for today. So thank you for listening, and make sure you do the assignment I give.